So every year I make a video that talks about the pros and cons of living in Sarasota. A little bit about me, if you're new to my channel, I'm Katrin.pfitzenreiter. I'm a local real estate agent here in Sarasota, and I help both buyers and sellers. And I think this video is really important because, you know what, the more information you have prior to making a big decision, the better for you. And I'm going to start off with this story here. And it actually relates to a buyer that I helped about 6 months ago. They moved in. It was February, I believe, of this year. It's been already, a few months, but they actually go to the same gym that I go to, and I pretty much see them maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Every time I see them, I'm like, so do you guys still love it here? Because I know there's somewhat of a honeymoon period no matter where one moves to, especially if you've targeted an area you move in, so you've wanted to live there. There's absolutely this honeymoon period because your dreams have just come alive and you are where you wanted to be. But that kind of wears off a little bit, just like anything else in life. I mean, you have that period of this is exciting because it's new, and then it just becomes part of your daily life. And so every week I'm just kind of testing them to see what they say, and they're just so in love with the area. And every time I see them, I feel like they're looking healthier, they're looking happier. And so I actually asked them, what specifically do you love about Sarasota? They essentially said everything. The weather, where they live, what there is to do. And so I just thought that was some interesting feedback, especially as it relates to the weather, because we're now in the summer months. It's actually August now. And that's when I would say a lot of people become realistic with what the weather is like, because it's so warm and humid here. And actually, we haven't had a hurricane yet, so they haven't, experienced that part yet. But they love even the summer weather. When I grew up in Germany, and we would vacation in the summer in Brazil because I'm also Brazilian heritage. It's very warm and humid there. And so my fantasy growing up, especially in cold Germany, was to move somewhere that was very tropical with palm trees, almost like the scene that you would see in Flipper. It was recorded in Key West, I believe. But Sarasota is very similar to Key West in a lot of ways when it comes to our beautiful beaches and the clear water. And so I actually reflected back on that, knowing that I moved somewhere I've always kind of envisioned myself living in. So there is that, warm weather year round. Beautiful beaches. I mean, you hear this all the time, especially about Siesta Key, which is probably our most popular beach. I tend to like North Lido Beach much better. If you're ever in that area, make sure you go not just to the southern Lido beaches, but make sure that you go to North Lido Beach, which is on the northern part. It's essentially the first beach that you would get to. And as you're walking towards the shoreline and you hang a right and you walk further down, if you're there during sunset, for example, you might end up being one of the only few people at that beach. So what I love about North Lido Beach is that it's not so much talked about, and so it's less trafficked. It's very raw, very scenic. But the point being is we have some beautiful beaches in Sarasota. Our beaches, because they're on the Gulf Coast, the water tends to be very clear, blue, much more bluer than it is on the East Coast. We don't have waves. On the East Coast, they have waves. Last year we went to St. Augustine and we spent some time at the beaches, and the beaches there are so different. It's like the Miami beaches. You have waves. The water is much deeper. You couldn't really see your feet, and it just felt very different. So if you're a surfer, you might actually like the East Coast better. But if you're someone that just wants to look at tranquil, blue, warm waters, then you probably would prefer being on this side. And because we're on the Gulf, we get to enjoy sunset. If I had a choice between sunsets and sunrises, I would absolutely choose sunsets. I've experienced both sunrises over in Brazil, in Ipanema, and so I know what that feels like. You wake up and there's the sunrise and the day's becoming, but there's something so much more spiritual about seeing the sunset at the end of the day when you're ready to reflect, you're ready to chill out, and being able to do this at beaches or water locations here in Sarasota, where we have some of the most breathtaking views, is absolutely amazing. Palm trees, there's something so beautiful about seeing palm trees when you're walking your dog or driving along a street, because it's a reflection of living in a very tropical environment, warm environment. When I first moved here, I had a corporate job. The first day I was driving to my job, I just remember thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually driving past all these palm trees. Because before then, what I would see was apartment buildings in New York City and office buildings. So it was kind of a paradigm shift for me. It was somewhat shocking, but I felt so relaxed driving to my job, partially because of the scenery and just the differences of seeing apartment buildings after apartment buildings and just a lot of nature, greenery, and palm trees. And that actually brings me to my next point, and that is how beautiful Sarasota is. And it never really gets boring because there are many different environments in Sarasota. So I would say Sarasota is a city, but it's not a big one. You can go from Lido Beach to downtown Sarasota in essentially 10 minutes by car over the Ringling Bridge. And so everything is very well interconnected. You can go from a beach to a city setting, to a suburban setting, to Mayeka State Park, which is a really incredible big park that we have for alligator watching or bird watching or just being closer to nature. All kind of within, I would say, 30 minutes to 45 minutes driving. And so in a day, you could literally do the beach, then you could go to Mayeka State Park, drive around suburbia, and then go back to downtown just in one day's time. And that's not to mention how close, say, St. Petersburg is. There's Tampa that's really close. You know, we're talking about maybe a little over an hour away. And for those who have kids, you know, the fact that Orlando is actually not that far away, you know, maybe 2 hours away by car. So there's plenty of other places that are easy to navigate to from Sarasota. But in Sarasota itself, it's so easy to change the scenery. My fifth pro was very important to me, and that is I wanted to make sure that I had enough culture, museums, art venues to be able to go to. Of course, not at the scale of New York City. I mean, that's hard to beat unless maybe you go to Tokyo or Sao Paulo or to some of the other really big cities across the world, really. But what we do have is just per capita a lot of different cultural events. As a matter of fact, Sarasota is actually known as the cultural hub in Southwest Florida because of how much we have to offer for the size of the population that lives in Sarasota. And so if I wanted to not go to the beach, maybe trade the casual life to dressing up and going to the opera, which would be downtown Sarasota, very easy to do here. But of course, there's also negatives. The negatives living in Sarasota became very apparent to me, especially after last year. You probably can guess what I'm going to say, and it comes back down to hurricanes, so extreme summer weather. Now, hurricanes, mind you, they don't hit us here every year. And what happened last year was quite dramatic, and we haven't really had an occurrence like that in many years prior to that. Now, my home is okay, I'm okay, my family is okay, but I did see what happened on the coast where flooding was a serious issue. With hurricanes now, a lot of people are experiencing just a little bit more fear, especially those people who were on the coast and they've seen, you know, what happened to their property. For me, it's more of a homeowner's insurance cost has gotten more expensive. It's hurricanes for a lot of people. They're going to be worried about that. And also the fact that insuring your home is going to be much more expensive. Now, new buyers coming in, the advantage for them is that they have a lot of information now in terms of how to mitigate the risk because there's information online, they're reading articles, and I think they have a real opportunity to keep the homeowner's insurance costs down if that's what they want to do, and also purchase a home that is far less likely to get affected by a bad weather storm. And here I'm really talking about going for an X zone, which is the preferred flood zone to live in. It doesn't mean it can't flood, but the chances are much lower. Also, perhaps living further away from the coast if, you know, surge water penetrating the home is of concern. And because there's a shortage of labor right now, and also because of inflation, it is very expensive to make home updates. Just to give you an example, if this is one home update that a lot of people are going to have to make eventually, Say you have a 3,000 square foot home and it has a tile roof. The tile roof is now 25 years old and perhaps you can't get homeowners insurance on it anymore because it's, too old. You're going to be faced with, likely, having to change the roof if you want to continue to put insurance on your home. To change a tile roof in Sarasota right now, that size home, of course, it depends on the pitch of the house and the type of tiles you get, but on average here, we're looking at anywhere from $70,000 to over $100,000. Redoing the bathroom, redoing the kitchen, very expensive. It's been, somewhat difficult finding really good, trusted people who are also giving you a fair price. And what I hear often is people complaining about the traffic. And so yes, because a lot of people moved here over the last few years, population numbers have come up, and so that's going to change certain patterns, traffic patterns. Getting into a restaurant, just recently went into the Bayfront area during sunset during the week. In this summer month, it's so hot and humid out, 95 degrees, and still plenty of people out in the park. It was actually crowded in the park. Healthcare access is relatively limited if you're new and you haven't signed up and found your doctors yet. And so my recommendation is, if you're looking to move here, or perhaps you just moved here and you're in good health, doesn't matter, find all your doctors now, have them lined up, because God forbid something happens to you, you're going to want to make sure you get seen very quickly. And if you haven't found your doctor yet, some of them aren't even taking new patients. It might take some time for you to be able to get seen because the population grew so much. And a lot of people who move in here, tend to be retirees still. Certainly that's changed somewhat during the pandemic growth spurt that we've seen here, where younger generations also moved in, partially because they could, because of remote work opportunities. Still fair enough to say that a lot of people were retiring, also choosing Sarasota to be their home. A lot of doctors here haven't been able to keep up with the increasing population. They're spread thin, and so that is especially true if you're looking to see a specialist. I was trying to be as transparent as possible in terms of pros and cons of living here in Sarasota. I, pinch myself still sometimes when I head over to the beach or I'm in the Bayfront area close to downtown. I think we live in some of the most breathtaking locations in Florida, absolutely, hands down. But you need to come and experience it. You need to see it for yourself, and perhaps you may not agree. But the idea of this video, again, was to give you my truth as I see the pros and cons, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave me a comment in the description section or contact me if you would like assistance to purchase your home. I would love to work with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Have a great day and take care.